sun is setting a little earlier. Leaves are starting to fall. And we're seeking stories for our annual Tales of Terror episode. That's right, we're chasing them down. If you have a tale that will send us running to buy a brighter headlamp or out of the woods entirely, please send it in. You can use the submission form on our website, dirtbagdiaries.com, under the tab Write for Us. We'll put a link in the show notes. We need your spooky tale by September 30th, or else. Stay tuned after the episode to hear our latest edition of And Then What? For 18 years, the Diaries has been in the business of getting you out there, doing what you love with the people you love, pushing you to maybe see a different way or a different path through life, and realizing that others have done this before. We know when we tell stories about people doing hard things, chasing dreams, working for their communities, and being curious, it begets more of that. It's infectious. Good things can happen. Right now, we're doing that with the show. We need you to keep this project going. That's the reality of the modern internet. To keep inspiration alive and the thoughtful stories and the laughter going. Some of you have come forward and stepped up and joined the Diaries Plus, but we need more of you. We need a bigger community saying this kind of project matters in this world. Diaries Plus is the tool that we make that happen with. So please consider becoming a member of Diaries Plus. There's a link in the show notes. You become a part of something. You become part of the inspiration, part of the creativity and the community, and we thank you for that. And I think we can build this show into the powerful thing it's been and the powerful thing it's going to become together. The link is in the show notes or on our website, dirtbagdiaries.com. Here's to more Type 2 fun. Here's to being part of something positive.
I have an affliction that a lot of people have, which is something in my head saying, what am I supposed to be doing? Or what should I be doing? I should definitely be doing something. Like I should be productive or be writing a song. There's like a high school principal in my head constantly getting on to me about not, doing enough or doing the right thing.
This is J.W. Francis.
And I found that there's only two places when that high school principal goes away. And it's when I'm on stage and I'm performing. It's exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, and I feel exactly in my element. And when I'm walking the trail. Because it gets rid of that part of your brain. You know exactly what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be walking north or whatever it is. But once you can silence that part of your brain, it opens up so much more mental real estate to actually imagine new futures for yourself.
Imagining new futures, new possibilities, and then having the chutzpah to step into them. If you spend 15 minutes with JW, you get the sense that amongst all of his talents, that may be his superpower. It also could have been passed to him from his parents.
But yeah, music has always been there because my parents had me very young. They were 19 years old, and they were always the hipster parents. My dad tried to write for Pitchfork in 1999, but he was too nice for them. J.W. Francis, born in Oklahoma, at the age of 12, moved to Vermont, and then 13 moved to Paris, France. It was my mom's dream. 13 to 19 years old was in Paris, France, and growing up in a suburban Oklahoma and then urban Paris, I wasn't super exposed to hiking or rivers or anything like that. I guess it was more of a fascination on paper of reading Narnia and reading a little Thoreau and reading a little, more of a romanticization of it than an actual reality with it. But walking outside, whether it be in a park or on the street, that and just the stimulus you get from moving your body like that has really always called me.
Through time, that love of music, that love of movement, they've operated like twin currents in JW's life. Sometimes they pull him in different directions. It's not always linear, but it's always forward. For the last 5 years, he's made a go of it as a musician and woven in a passion for through hiking and solitude. He got to that moment by living in New York City, where he was working as an economist alongside a Nobel laureate. J.W. Francis's life may be driven by currents, but it also seems to flow in one direction, meandering, winding, gaining momentum as it heads for its destination. Through the years, these big, classic through hikes and long-distance bike rides have cropped up on the show. But slowly, there's a new American long-distance journey gaining traction, the Mississippi River. What did JW discover out on the water of the Great River? Let's find out. I'm Fitz Cahall. You're listening to the Dirtbag Diaries. Did you start out with guitar? Like, do you remember the first time you picked up a guitar? Or?
Absolutely. Actually, I started with drums because my dad was a drummer. Dad is a drummer. So I started with the rhythm, and then I always wanted a guitar. And I didn't really take it seriously, though, until I was in Paris, and I saw a sign that said, teach guitar, or like, looking for a guitar teacher, 40 euros an hour. And I had a guitar and I couldn't really play it, but I was like, oh my gosh, if I could learn one lesson quicker than that kid, I could get 40 euros an hour and teach myself guitar. So I kind of learned guitar so I could teach guitar and make money. I definitely wouldn't recommend getting into it for money, but now that I do it full time, yeah, it was a great way to learn. And that was formative, and then went to Columbia in New York and studied economics. It was sold to me as the study of human decision-making, and that really interested me. Worked for an economist, a pretty famous economist for 4 years, Joseph Stiglitz. He's the inequality guy, and that's what I studied. I just was interested to learn why the world, it is the way it is.
Where did the interest in hiking come from in your adult life?
Something clicked in me when I took a class called Walk This Way, which my parents always made fun of me that I put myself in so much debt to go to an Ivy League university to take a class on walking. But it was really about changing the way you think about walking, more than getting from point A to point B, and more about walking as not just a political or religious or spiritual practice, but as like a natural way for the body to be. Like when you think of the body as like a general concept, a lot of times you think of it static, like just like laying there, or when you think of like, how am I doing? You think of like an image of your body that's static, but actually I feel like movement is the natural state. If you look at just our skeletons, they're built to walk, they're built to be moving. And so many problems that people are having these days are just because we're sitting down and, looking at a screen. Everybody knows that. But when you live like a radical walking everyday lifestyle, you start to feel so much better. I don't know. Like, it's kind of that simple.
Through his years in college, JW, he was playing in bands. He's in the music scene. One spring break, his band got booked to play down in Georgia.
So I joined a band called the Britneys, and they were playing a festival called Savannah Stopover. This is 2015. I'm still in college, and I'm taking that class, Walk This Way. And so they have a gig in Savannah, and it's spring break, and we drove down, played the gig, and they were just going to drive right back up. And I was like, actually, you guys, just leave me here, and I'll find my way back. And that was kind of my plan. I looked up like what to do around Savannah, and I saw that the trail was not crazy far. It was a couple buses away, and I was like, that's it. That's my spring break. And so maybe like a week before, I bought a JanSport backpack. For some reason, I took 5 rolls of toilet paper out there. I don't know why. It was 1 week. I just thought that would be useful for some reason. A loaf of bread and a jar of peanut butter and a sleeping bag. I thought that was pretty much all I needed. And I started the trail. I was a junior in college, spring break, and I was so excited, and it felt so right. Night one, I get to the campsite, and I put my sleeping bag out, and some guy comes up to me, and he's like, "Didn't you bring a tent?" And I was like, "Oh, right. Like, well, that'll be fine. Like, I'm pretty easy." And he was like, "What if it rains?" And I was like, "Oh, I didn't think about that." And like, that was my introduction to backpacking, was being completely unprepared. My first trail name was Cowboy because I was cowboy camping. And it literally didn't rain for 5 nights somehow. And then the 6th night it did rain and I went home because it was totally miserable. There was no room in the lean-tos. But that was why, so the trail had put this seed in me. And I was like, I'm going to come back and I'm going to actually do research and I'm going to actually do this right.
Six years pass, JW graduates, he ends up getting a job for Joseph Stiglitz in New York City, which, if you are a young economist, is a pretty sweet gig. He's making music on the side. And then COVID hit. With New York City being the American epicenter in those early days, it was a dark moment, a lonely moment. JW's roommates left, and he found himself alone in an apartment in lockdown. He cranked out music, and by 2021, he'd gotten signed to a record deal. But all that time during lockdown, he was still thinking about the AT, about going back and walking more of it.
I quit my job in 2021 because I got signed to a record label.
Was that an interesting conversation to go have with Stiglitz? Like being like, hey, you know, the whole like chasing and understanding human decision-making when it relates to like human inequality. I got a record gig. Was that an interesting conversation to have?
He wasn't so enthused about the record deal. What really got him okay with me leaving was walking the Appalachian Trail. For some reason, that he was like, "Are you sure you want to get into the music industry? Like, I study economics and I can tell you it's not good." But when I told him I need to go walk for 4 months, he was like, "That's awesome. Go do that. I can't stop you there. Like that makes total sense." And he really were both very logistically minded. So of course he was like, "How do you get food? Where do you sleep?" I had to give him a PowerPoint on how this was going to go down.
So in 2021, with a few-month gap in his music schedule, JW went back to Georgia and started hiking north, this time with a little bit better handle for life on the trail.
Oh, man, it was beautiful. It was I learned so much. You know exactly what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be walking north or whatever it is. But once you can silence that part of your brain, it opens up so much more mental real estate to actually imagine new futures for yourself.
Did it impact your music? Like, were you taking what you were learning, you know, the people you were meeting, and were you turning that into songs?
Yeah, when I was on the trail, I'd have tons of melodic ideas that would just come because it didn't feel like I was supposed to be doing. I feel like I was, doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing, so I could just chill and, kind of explore my inner world just as much as I was exploring the outer world.
JW hiked north, along with the bubble of hikers that appears at Springer Mountain every spring to follow the AT. He just finished his first album, Wonder Kid, and the strange sense of life imitating art started to drift into his conscience.
I've been finding more and more, this might just because I'm getting into energy stuff because I'm in LA and manifesting, but I've been finding more and more that I actually have been manifesting things through my songs. And I will a lot of times write something and then go do it and not realize that that's what's happening. So Wonder Kid was literally about getting out of my job, getting out of the situation I was in, and just, living in New York during COVID was dark. And going out and wandering and wandering the world. And then I wrote that album and recorded it, and then went and did that. And then I did it a lot longer than I thought I was going to. And the funny thing is I really expected to go back to New York after that adventure and do it, tour in the fall, but not go back to the way things were, but be a musician in New York. But something about living outside for 123 days, I love the 1, 2, 3, it changed my brain and the way I was wired. And once I saw what was possible in terms of lifestyle, I mean, so many people I met, it was their 5th or 6th time doing the trail. And I learned that it's not really a one-time thing. It's like you get a taste and then your bucket list gets longer. Instead of you crossing things off, you end up adding things to it. And so Bullet Points I did that in 2021, and then for 4 years, I just never looked back. I just kept going.
He made it 1,600 miles before life and music called him back, but the feeling of movement, of traversing landscapes, and waking up with a simple purpose stuck with him.
So I met a man named Nanook on the Appalachian Trail, and he was close to 70. And he told me a funny story of basically he thought he was canoeing the longest river in America, only to find out that's actually the Missouri River. So he had just done the Mississippi and he was about to go back and do the Missouri so he could do the longest river in America. And I remember thinking, he's so old. I could do that. Like, I mean, he was a strong old man. He was, that's the old man strength. But still, I was like, oh, I didn't even know that was possible. And I had the same questions that you probably have of how do you get through the dams? And can you even stay on the water the whole time? I don't get it. Like, aren't there cities and bridges and whatnot?
For the next few years, JW toured, worked on new music, but the Mississippi, that idea of isolation, solitude, it stayed with him until he got to the point where he just had to find out for himself. So in 2024, JW packed a canoe and slid into the waters of Lake Itasca and began a journey with little idea of what to expect.
Let's go.
Coming up, JW starts paddling the big money. Stay with us.
Rolling in the night, on my way to the next light. Showtime is coming up.
The Diaries is supported by Oboz Footwear. Oboz, outside of Bozeman. That's what it means, right? And the company uses the Montana mountains like a giant R&D lab. So whether you're looking for a classic low-profile shoe or a rugged off-trail hiker, Oboz has figured it out by testing it in this rugged landscape. The Bridger Peak is their pinnacle product, engineered for hikers seeking the highest level of protection and stability. The all-leather uppers feature Vibram and Gore-Tex technology for the toughest trails. Or maybe the Highlight is more your style, designed for those who seek a lower-profile hiker with all-terrain performance and aim to be on their feet from dusk till dawn. That's kind of my style. The Highlight has a unique blend of recycled and bio-based materials and a range of color options. To find your next pair of footwear, check out obozfootwear.com/lovehiking. Oboz Footwear. Love hiking. So Washington State, where we live, has one of the most incredible state park systems in the country, full stop. Every year we pull out the atlas, we take a look at where we could go, and we pick a new place. One year, it was Lake Curlew State Park out by Republic. There was incredible mountain biking around there, and the lake right there was where I taught my kids to fish. It's rad. The Washington Discover Pass is your key to accessing Washington State Park's recreation sites, natural areas, and more. When you purchase a Discover Pass, you aren't just buying a parking pass, you're helping care for public lands. You directly support conservation and recreation opportunities. You're keeping bathrooms open and trails maintained. You're caring for forests and protecting seashores. And the Discover Pass helps us protect and enjoy them together. So if you're out of state, come visit. Check out the system. Buy the pass. And if you're here, buy the pass because it helps us enjoy these places and keep them open. Get your Discover Pass at discoverpass.wa.gov. That's discoverpass.wa.gov. The other day, I realized, I was like, I'm kind of tired. And I realized I had been doing something, like whether it was a big mountain bike ride, running, climbing, lifting, for like 10 days straight. On those days, when I'm asking a little bit more of my body, I've been keeping myself fueled with Kachava. Kachava's whole body meal shakes keep your body and mind nourished all day. With 2 scoops of Kachava, you get 85 superfoods, nutrients, and plant-based ingredients. It's all there right on the back of the package. You can see what you get, and it's just an awesome add into what I eat during the day. So not only am I getting 25 grams of plant-based protein, I'm also getting adaptogens and super greens at the same time. Added bonus, no artificial flavors, colors, or sweeteners. Kachava now has 6 flavors to choose from, including the new strawberry. It's delicious, and it's definitely the favorite in our house right now. You've never tasted strawberry like this. Go to kachava.com and use code DIARIES for 15% off your order. That's Kachava, KACHAVA.com, code DIARIES for 15% off. Hey, if you're looking for new podcasts to listen to, check out the recent episode from our friends at Points North. Tracy Martin always wanted to do something big, and after her mom died, she knew she couldn't wait anymore, so she set out to do something no one had ever done before: kayak around all the Great Lakes in 1 year. A month in, she capsized in huge waves in Lake Michigan.
I'm getting really cold. I'm choking on some water, and I'm like half a mile from shore. I knew if I panicked, I was dead.
To hear what happened, listen to The Longest Paddle from Points North, a podcast about the Great Lakes region. Subscribe to Points North wherever you listen to your podcasts.
I had never even been in a canoe before. I had taken one safety training course, which I recommend anybody do before they do something like this. But beyond the safety training course that was 2 hours long, I had never been in a canoe. So just like it is with any outdoor adventure, you have to do a lot of research beforehand. Not just about what will generally happen, but what's specifically happening that year with snowfall and rainfall, and to get an idea of what the river is going to look like that year. Because unlike a trail, it changes every year drastically. Whereas you're going to get pretty much the same trail every year, but a river is going to be so different. I mean, the flow, the level of the water, everything is going to be very different. You start at Lake Itasca, which is the source of the Mississippi. It's fed by a lake, and it's fed mostly by rainfall. It starts off like a creek, which is really funny. You can jump across it. And I would recommend taking a kayak for the first 500 miles and then switching to a canoe at Minneapolis. I just went straight canoe, and I felt like that boat that was stuck in the Suez Canal a few years ago, and it was like that. That would happen to me all the time. When I was rounding a corner, I would just get stuck like that, and I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, what am I doing?" But it's a beautiful teacher because it starts slow and narrow, and then it gets faster and faster, and more tributaries come into it, and it gets wider and wider. You really develop more of like a personal relationship with the river, as opposed the trail is so social. You're constantly meeting people. It's so much about the human connection, whereas like in the river, you are in the flow and you are totally the subject to whatever the weather and whatever everything is that day. There's so few people who do it. So for context, there's about 4,000 people, I think. Could be wrong, but I think it was last year's numbers were about 4,000 who attempted a thru hike of the Appalachian Trail. On the Mississippi, it's closer to 50. So it's just a year who try to do it. So it's just a magnitude of order of different, numbers.
And because of the difference in the numbers, there are far fewer resources built specifically for paddlers going the length of the Mississippi. Of course, the river does pass through big cities like Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Memphis, giant urban centers, with everything you could possibly need or want. But the boat also acts as a kind of tether to the river. It's hard to leave it. JW thought this would be an experience with little interaction, and in the beginning it was mostly that way. He'd paddle the small, narrow headwaters, find a place to camp on the bank or on an island, and start over the next day. The phenomena of trail magic courses all up and down the Appalachian Trail. Trail angels appear with food and an easy hitchhike into town when a hiker needs it. It turned out the same was true for the Mississippi.
So it was a huge learning curve. Also, I went out there knowing about the river angels, but not expecting myself to rely on them. And not that I even relied on them in the sense of like, oh, if I don't meet up with this person, I'm not going to have food, nothing like that. But quickly realizing, okay, I can't plan that much because I'm very, dependent on the weather and the current and all these things that are completely out of my control. And these people are literal angels. They want to feed me and keep me showered and rested, and they're so excited for me. And they have such interesting stories, and it's so easy to see from the get-go how much I'm bringing to them with my fresh energy of being on a big adventure kind of thing. So yeah, this first 300 miles, I was like, oh, I get it. Okay. Like a lot of people who go out and do this thing, I was looking for some sense of solitude, but pretty quickly you find that you do need people. Not just to talk to, but logistically, like showering is great. I mean, because the trail has hostels, the trail has lots of towns you can get a ride into. The river, it's a little trickier. Even though you're passing towns, like where do you put your boat? Where do you put all your stuff? You smell so bad. You don't want to go into society. So having people who live directly on the water, who have a dock where you can just tie up safely, go into their little secondary outhouse and take a shower and whatever, it's such a lifesaver. And they love to do it, and they love to meet people and hear their stories. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of funny. I feel like so many people doing these adventures think that they are running away from humanity and society and whatnot. And you're actually doing the exact opposite. You're gaining a whole new appreciation for humanity. And thinking that that's different from nature couldn't be further from the truth. Like you go out there thinking like, oh, I'm going to kind of prove that I don't need all this society stuff, and you come full circle and you're like, this is society and people, and actually I need it more than I ever realized.
And as he moved south and east, as the river widened and grew bigger, he met more and more of these river angels. Their stories and their conversations sparked ideas in JW.
I thought I was going to be stepping away from creative work, but it wasn't work. It was just capturing everything that was in the air.
Did you bring a guitar for it, or like?
Yeah, so I had a foldable guitar that I bought that was super cool. The neck came off, and it went into this little case, and it was called a puddle skipper. So I was like, oh, perfect. This is so perfect. So every night I'd put it together and tune it up and start strumming, and stuff would just come out.
JW kept paddling. As it grows and other tributaries enter, the infrastructure in the river proper also becomes more complex. There are dams.
Mostly in Minnesota, and go around certain dams. That's called portaging.
Locks.
And you can actually radio the lock master, and they'll laugh at you. But it's free of charge. They will let you in, lower you down, open the doors on the other side, and it's really fun. And then it's really annoying because it kind of does disrupt your day, and sometimes you have to wait for 45 minutes to 3 hours if there's a bunch of barges in front of you.
And then there are the 4 W's.
Wind, water, weather, waves. Those are the 4 things that you think about every day at all times.
And aside from his time with the River Angels, JW had large chunks of time where he interacted with no one.
Like I said, there's like 50 people a year, so I met 4 other people who were doing it, as opposed to I'd probably meet 15 people a day on the trail who were doing it.
To play a show in Wisconsin, JW had to leave the river north of Minneapolis. Logistics dictated that he ended up getting dropped off 200 miles further downstream. By then, the character of the river had started to shift.
So you start slow. Minnesota, people don't know this, but there's designated campsites for 600 miles. So it's super safe and you really feel like you're supposed to be there. And then after Minnesota, you feel like you're not supposed to be there anymore. You have to stealth camp on islands, which is really cool if you can find a good island. But mostly you're on the banks of the river, wherever you can find sand. But you really have to start looking for a campsite a couple hours before the sun sets so that you make sure you find one before it gets dark. And then south of St. Louis, it is a completely, almost different river, especially south of Cairo, Illinois. After the Ohio meets up and the Missouri meets up, the river gets a mile and a half wide. And you start to encounter whirlpools that are as big as a football field. You have no more locks and dams, so it's just you and the river. And it's big and wild and a little more dangerous, but there's a lot more wild miles, as they call them, where you're not hitting any towns.
Through it all, JW kept listening to what the river was teaching him. What do you think you learned from like the actual river?
I have so many metaphors that I walked away with that are really only things you can learn by living through them. But one that keeps coming up for me, especially now that I'm in a new place and navigating a new social scene, is when I was paddling the river, you learn pretty quickly the amount of effort you put in matters a lot less than where you are in the flow and where you are in the river. And so you can paddle as hard as you want on the inside of the bend, and you're going to not go very fast. If you take the outside bend where the water is flowing so much quicker, it takes so much less effort to go so much faster. And that has been coming up in my life in so many different ways of I don't actually need, willpower is almost overrated. You don't need to put in all of this effort. Obviously you do need effort, and I can't help myself to work really hard, but it matters way more how you position yourself in life and much less how much you're actually trying, which, I mean, you could just say work smarter, not harder. But when you think of it like a river, it makes more sense to me in my body.
Over the course of months, JW made his way the length of the Mississippi.
And then you go all the way to the Gulf, baby. And people always ask, and then what? Depends on where you get off, where you spit out. But generally, you either go right back upstream where the last city is Venice, Louisiana, or if you take the Atchafalaya River, which is an outlet that's a lot safer, you take a right and you end up in a state park, and you hopefully you've prearranged a ride. I traded my boat for a ride. I said, you can have it. I'm done with this. I just need someone to get me to New Orleans so I can rent a car and drive to my grandma's house.
JW doesn't seem one to worry too much about asterisks, but after the 2024 trip, he thought a lot about the river and those final 200-odd miles he'd missed for the show. The segment from St. Cloud, Minnesota to La Crosse, Wisconsin. It hung out there.
Of course, I would tell people, and they'd be like, oh, what was it like going through Minneapolis? And I'm like, well, now I seem fake because I didn't do that part. So it was, a lot of people were like, dude, you did it. It's fine. But the purity mindset was like, no, I must go back and do, I mean, it's 225 miles. It's it's a good little chunk out of 2,340. So, I mean, it's a small chunk, but it's still a chunk.
So this summer, in between new albums, life in LA, and tours, JW snuck back to Minnesota.
So I went back to St. Cloud, and I had taken out in the backyard of this river angel, Charlie Gruska, and he was so happy to have me back. It turns out I was the last paddler he had hosted. Not because I had given him a bad taste and he had never taken on any other paddlers, but just because of his life. His life got crazy after me. So it was he was happy to have another paddler, and he was happy to, be a part of my journey again. This was in a kayak this time instead of a canoe, which I learned is much easier and faster. I'm like, dang it, why didn't I do the whole thing? I did 225 miles in 8 days, which, okay, so the river was higher this time, so it was faster, but yeah, I had no idea how easy kayaking is. I mean, canoe has like technique. You gotta like really like be, I don't know, like strategic about your paddles and everything. Kayak, it's just all intuitive. You're just going. Like, it's pretty sweet. You have a 1.5 mile portage through around St. Anthony Falls, and that's kind of a rite of passage of this whole experience, is carrying your watercraft for 1.5 miles, which sucks. It was really sweet though, because I had fans who they put me up every time I'm in Minneapolis, and it's a father and son, and they wanted to help me, so that was really sweet. They like spotted me from the river. I had a little tracker on me, and he came and helped me. I mean, it really drove home the point that people want to help. It's really, you don't go out there being like, I need help, or you don't go out there to be vulnerable, but you are vulnerable when you're out there, and it brings out the best in people. It's kind of crazy, but the more vulnerable you are, and the more in this space of you're on a big adventure or whatever, I wish that life itself was seen more as a big adventure that we need help on, you know, because it's so easy to help someone who's like, I'm going to the Gulf, or I'm, going to Maine, and you're like, wow, that's so inspirational. I want to help you in any way I can. And it would be so cool if people were like, I'm alive and trying to stay alive, and people are like, that's so inspirational. I want to help in any way I can, But there's something really deep down in people that want that. They feel good helping. Like, you can see how much it gives them as well. So that was the point that drove home again. Like, you can't avoid it. You go out there and you just see the best in humanity. Like, it's really funny. Like, you think you're getting away from humanity, but actually you're getting to meet the best part of it. So basically, to wrap up the whole experience, I started July 1st, 2024, and now I've officially finished August 30th, 2025.
Dude, it's just crazy talk, but could you play us a song?
Oh, yeah! That's not crazy talk at all. Let's see, where's my guitar? It's right over here. Yeah, absolutely, I would love to. This one's called Watery Road, which is another word for river.
Same place.
That was the best part of my day.
Oh, yay!
And it's been a good
not
day. So, yeah.
Hey, that's pretty good. Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
It's not my usual key. It's in a funnier key.
I like it. It's good. Dude, so talking about this, like, earlier you talked about this moment of being like, I am where I am supposed to be. And you feel that walking, you feel that paddling, you feel that playing music. So many people in this world try to find that. And part of what like the show is that we do is about people finding that, right? Finding meaning, finding purpose, finding presence, right? When did you know that this is what you were supposed to do?
That's a great question, because I feel like it's actually, people want the moment. It's like love. Like people want the, love at first sight, or the lightning bolt moment. And those moments do come, but they arise and they fade away. I feel like the sense of arrival has to be cultivated through practice. And it's like love. It's a practice. And when I say like sense of arrival, it always feels like you're on the way to something, or like you're supposed to be doing something, or you're going to be happy when you do this, or you're going to feel good as soon as this happens. But you quickly realize as you start to accomplish things or whatever that it's a receding horizon, and it's always just out of reach. And so trying to feel like you've arrived, it's something that can't really be intellectualized. It's something that's not really in the thinking brain, and it's more in the feeling body. And I feel like that's why we walk, and that's why we canoe, and that's why we, go out there and do stuff like this, because otherwise we just read books about it and be like, okay, cool, I got it. But you don't get it until you practice it. It's like an everyday thing. And I think it can be dangerous to think about it in like that moment it happened, because it will fade. That moment will like fade away. And you can never recreate the same moment. And it's funny, like, I want to go back to all these things, but I know that it will not be going back. It will be going forward, and I'll be doing something totally different. The trail, just like the river, changes every year. Just the whole vibe of who you're with and what's going on. So I feel like it was less of a moment and more of a growing awareness of like this secret of life. It's less about where you're going and where you're exactly at right now. That's it. You've arrived. And just kind of keep whispering that to yourself of like, I've arrived. This is it.
Heat.
Thank you to JW for sharing your story with us. He's back on tour this fall. You can find all the dates and locations by following him on Instagram. We'll put a link in the show notes. I already got my tickets for Seattle. Our stories come from friends of friends, and from you, our community. If you have a compelling idea for a guest or story lead, please give us a shout. You can email us at editor@ducktapethenbeer.com. Thanks to the folks who have recently become Diaries Plus members, and those of you who continue to support. It's amazing. You're powering this show. You're making it accessible for other people, and we thank you. Please consider joining if you haven't already. It makes a huge difference. Want another way to help? Write us a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps other people find the show. Music today from J.W. Francis, including the track playing now, Wandering Kid. The tracks are courtesy of the artist. Jacob Bain and Nis Cotto composed our theme song. You can find the artist at our website, dirtbagdiaries.com. This episode was produced by Marco Seiler Gonzalez and me, with additional production help from Becca Cahal, who's also our executive producer. Illustration by Walker Cahal. I'm Fitz Cahal, and you've been listening to the Dirtbag Diaries. Thanks for tuning in.
Of
Welcome to And Then What, the segment where we break down the headlines, figure out what the hell's happened since then. Chances are, if you've been on social media recently, you've probably seen people posting about the Roadless Rule. Right now, there's an open window for comments, so there's this big push for people to weigh in on the importance of these landscapes in their lives and in their communities. Roadless areas, it's interesting. For a lot of us, they are our backyard areas. They are a collection of lands set aside to basically provide space for outdoor recreation, conservation, hunting, and fishing in clean water. Today, Tim Cook from the Grand Canyon Trust joins us to break down the Roadless Rule and why it's important. All right, let's start here. Tim, what is the Roadless Rule?
Well, the Roadless Rule is a national rule that was created in the late 90s and early 2000s, released in 2001, and it broadly prohibits commercial logging and wood construction in about 58.5 million acres nationwide. And what that means essentially is that these areas are preserved for hunting and fishing, for recreation, for wildlife habitat, for their watershed values. The rule itself was the result of 600 public meetings nationwide at the time. There were about 1.6 million comments, the majority of which were in favor of protecting the rule. And that's really remarkable given that it was largely before widespread adoption of the internet. So most of the comments were written down on paper, which is sort of novel these days, but it's a really popular mechanism that allows some of these last backcountry areas, some of the last intact old growth forests to be preserved and protected for the future.
And obviously there was an ecological reason for protecting these areas, but there was also a need from a financial standpoint, right, to deal with this as well. Some of these places were becoming drains and burdens on the Forest Service. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. The Forest Service manages more than 370,000 miles of roads. That's more than the interstate highway system. And those roads are expensive to maintain and to keep up to standard. There was a huge maintenance backlog at the time. There's a huge maintenance backlog on those roads now, around $5 billion for transportation. So it really makes sense financially if you're looking at trying to balance the books and trying to cut spending to not add more roads, right?
Yeah. And so why at this moment in time, when we all decided 25 years ago, where 1.6 million people took the time to actually handwrite a comment, would we be now deciding to go dig that hole again? Is there any logic behind this?
The president has issued an executive order demanding that we do a lot more logging than we have for the past few decades. And we need more roads to fight wildfire, and we need more timber production. Well, this isn't the solution to that for a couple of reasons. First, wildfire mitigation is best done near communities where people live, where their houses are built, not in remote, far-flung backcountry areas, which is what the majority of these roadless areas are. They're far from communities, and that work is best done in the wildland-urban interface. That's expensive work. It's generally not a moneymaker. So communities have to dedicate their limited resources to mitigating wildfire risk near where people live. So it's really not a solution for that. The other issues with roads, yes, they're convenient for fighting wildfires, but all of the research says that the more roads you have, the more likely you are to get wildfire starts. So in Utah, for example, 70% of the wildfires were human caused. And the research says that 90% of these human caused wildfires start on or near roads. So it could actually lead to more wildfires.
Why is this happening?
Well, I think it's happening because it's part of a larger push. Obviously, the reductions in force, the budget cuts, the rescissions that have gone through Congress, all of these things are designed to kind of destabilize these agencies, to get rid of all of the expertise the people who have been working at these places for years and years have built up. I think it's much easier to make an argument that something is not working if you starve it of funds. It would be easier for folks to draw the conclusion that, oh boy, the Forest Service and the Bureau of Land Management, it isn't working. They can't do their jobs. It's a lot easier to make that argument if you fire tons of people. If you cut the budget, you can say, oh, this isn't working. These lands need to be sold off. They need to be privatized. They need to be turned over to the states. It's all part of this larger push, in my opinion, to privatize these public resources.
Right now, there's obviously a comment period out there. There's a lot of organizations that have made that easy to do. You can do it on your own. But like, what should we be thinking about it? Because this administration doesn't necessarily seem to be listening totally to what people have to say in terms of how they feel about public lands. What's the best way to kind of help get their attention and say, this is just politically unpopular and leave it alone?
I was very heartened to see earlier this summer when vast numbers of people, hunters and fishermen, recreationists, people interested in ecology, when people really rose up to let Senator Mike Lee know that including the sale of public lands in a budget bill was just unacceptable. And that sort of groundswell of public pressure, it was amazing. It came from all sectors. And I'm absolutely positive that made a big difference in killing that proposal. We're in a similar situation now with the repeal of this rule, where it's obviously much, much more land would be affected by this, over 40 million acres across the entire country. I think this merits a response as large as that response over the sale of public lands. It's absolutely vital that folks not let that opportunity pass without weighing in on that. You can do so at our website, grandcanyontrust.org. Look for the Act tab. And then I think it's also worthwhile for folks to contact their members of Congress. There's currently a bill in Congress called the Roadless Area Conservation Act, and that bill would codify the Roadless Rule, essentially short-circuiting this effort to repeal the rule. That has a number of co-sponsors in the House and the Senate, and folks should contact their elected officials and thank them if they've already co-sponsored it, or ask them to co-sponsor it if they haven't. I think the more people hear about this issue, the more that they can bring their passion forward. I'm fairly certain that is the only way that we will stop this effort and then subsequent efforts to sort of steal our lands and our resources.
Thanks, Tim, for sitting down to talk with us. In the show notes on the episodes, we've put some references to action links and ways you can learn more. Huge shout out to the Diaries Plus members. Their support is what makes and then what possible. Thanks for listening.